Gentlemen, welcome back to your newborn show, and today we are again here with you to discuss a very specific topic about the Rwanda genocide, with our lovely teacher and supervisor, Mr. Jiang here, present with us. And also, I'm happy to let you know that today I'm here around the studio, around the microphone with my brother Mustafa, who is my co-host today. And later on, he's going to tell you more about the show we intend just to present to you today. Ladies and gentlemen, this was just a brief presentation of the show we are going to have today here on Chess TV. But as always, like our previous show, we have to handle another theme, which is the sub-theme of the show. And the theme today is going to be discussed deeply by you, the community, and also our dear, lovely guest speaker, and also Mustafa, of Get Together. And the theme is all about the joblessness after training for certain students. Comme nan lay def rek daal di koy faram-fàccee tuuti rek ci ay kàllaamay Côte d'Ivoire nag daal di permettre ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi seetaan tey ñu mën a am lu ñu xam ci thème bi nga xamante ne moom lañu fas yéene waxtaanee balaa loolu nag dama leen di présenté ki nga xam ne moom la àndal tey ci émission bi muy Moustapha di sama frère moom la àndal tey ci émission bi ci équipe bi waaye tey ñu daal di dalal gan bu am maanaam boo xamante ne ci li mu yàgg a liggéey rek ci loolu lañ koy laaj waaye tamit dinañ ko laaj ci beneen laaj boo xamante dafa jëm ci communauté bi comme ñi dëkkee fii nii ci Thiès dëkkee Sénégal li nga xam ne moom nañuy dund kon li nga xamante ne moo fi indi tey moom monsieur Diaw mooy mu waxtaan ak ñun lan mooy massacre yi nga xamante ne xew na fële ca Rwanda jamono boo xamante ne xaw naa yàgg te xaw naa doy waar loolu nag lay dikk mu fàttali ñu tuuti histoire balay loolu tamit xam naa dina ko baal mu présenté wu waaye ginnaaw loolu tamit ci tënk yi dinañ waxtaan ci beneen thème boo xamante ne c'est sur la question la question du chômage pour certains jeunes, certains étudiants après avoir suivi des formations et qui n'arrivent pas à trouver de boulot ici dans notre pays. Qu'est-ce qui est à l'origine de tout cela? C'est ce dont on va discuter aujourd'hui. Et je vais passer juste la parole à monsieur qui va se présenter. Et vous, la communauté qui est en train de nous suivre ici, sur les studios.
And I think you guys do recognize my face. So that modest person in front of you on the screen is going by the name of Muhammad Mustafa Jan, student at Sheikh Anta Diop University in License 3. It's always a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here again in order to talk about that very specific issue, which is about the Rwanda genocide. And it's a great pleasure to have you, Mr. Mustafa, and just tell you that you are very well dressed today. Your guest speaker. I think we're going to have a wonderful fun today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. So now I'm going to turn the microphone over to our lovely guest, Mr. Diaw of Thiès, Mr. Diaw of Senegal. Mr. Diaw, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, my dear friend, for your invitation. It is a great pleasure and to be here and to share with you the same love and the same passion we have for the English language. Before going any further into details, I would like just to introduce myself. Most of the people knows me as a supervisor, but I'm teaching also the English language. But I'm someone who is very much passionate, about African history. And there are two countries that I'm very fond of, which are Zimbabwe and Rwanda. The first time I was invited, it was on CDFM, and I was discussing about the Zimbabwean issues. So I think it is the second time I have come here to discuss about another issue that I can qualify as an African tragedy, which is the Rwandan genocide. Okay, I'm going to give you the floor, waiting for the propitious moment to have more questions about it, and we are going to develop, our thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diaw, for that brief presentation of yourself. We have really loved it, and I think the community watching us also does appreciate what you are doing. And in the long run of the show, they will discover who Mr. Diaw is and what Mr. Diaw is in and about, and what Mr. Diaw is going on with. All that you're gonna let them know. And as I said earlier, Mr. Zhao is a teacher of English. Mr. Zhao is a supervisor in a private school.
Okay, so I would like just also to bring another something that I have not said before. I was a former student at the English department of the university and at the British Senegalese Institute. And I belong to the generation of students who left the university during the crisis of 1994.
Wow.
It is at that precise time that I went to the BSI. When I found it very much difficult to have a job, I have completely shifted from my position as a student, to be a pump attendant in oil station for almost 10 years. Wow. It is only in 2012 that I left aside this job and had put myself in a process of rebuilding my English. That is the reason for my being a teacher of English and as well as a supervisor.
Also, thank you very much, Mr. Zhao, again, for that excellent and relevant also explanation about yourself. And I think, as I said earlier, Mr. Mustafa has also some question to go on with. And before that, I'm just gonna let you introduce the topic of the Rwanda genocide. Why we call it the Rwanda genocide?
Okay, thank you very much. It is a very important question. Why we are talking about the Rwandan genocide? Because it is a tragedy. Almost 1 million people have been killed during this crisis. And so as to understand the real problem, that was the root, of the Rwandan genocide, we have to look back, in the history of Rwanda. In this country, we have 3 community groups. We have the Hutu, who represent something like 85% of the population, and we have the Tutsi, who represent something like 13% of the population, and we have the Twa, who represent 2% of the population. But all of them speak the same language, which is Kinyarwanda. In other words, there is a kind of, cultural unity. But in Berlin, in 1885, when the European countries met so as to divide the African, colonies, it was decided that Rwanda should be given to Germany. And Germany was the first, countries who colonized Rwanda. And at the end of the First World War, it has been withdrawn from Germany, and Belgium has been asked to administer, this country.
Okay.
Until 1959, the Hutu people realized that they were a little bit, put aside. They were not part of the Rwandan society. It is the feeling they had.
It's like they were lagging behind. And
they were lagging behind. And they have sent a kind of Hutu manifesto, which is a kind of document where they say that it's not rightful for them to be 85% of the population and to be left behind. They have organized a kind of political upheaval in such a way that the king, who was a Tutsi, were assassinated.
Wow.
And the Belgium, colonizers have contributed, to this political unrest. And in 1962, Rwanda was given his independence. And the newly Hutu president said that the first job he has to do as a Rwandan is to get, the Rwandan society, is to help the Rwandan society get rid of the Tutsi people inside this country. Because they are not originated from Rwanda. They came from Ethiopia. And other Rwandans were saying that these Hutu people are Jewish, Falasa Jewish.
Okay.
So they should return to Israel or to where they came from, Ethiopia.
All right, so it sounds like there was a big conspiracy going on.
Yes, it is a big conspiracy. It is a big conspiracy with the help of some neighboring countries.
Okay.
And in 1973, General Abraharimana, who was the defense minister, took the power and overthrew, the president. He has been put into jail, he has been brought before the tribunal, and he has been condemned to death penalty. And this death penalty has been shifted into a life imprisonment, and he died in custody. And President Abraharimana, when he realized that the solution was not to get the Tutsi out of Rwanda. The solution is to reconcile all the different ethnic groups in Rwanda. So he asked his people to put aside, their social cleaving.